Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best knives and gear. There's a whole bunch of different categories, including some of my own personal recommendations. There's something down here for everybody, so make sure you take a look. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Middle Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. One that is long overdue, especially on my channel, being, as you know, I'm a gigantic Hinderer fan. This is the Rick Hinderer Knives 3-inch. It's actually a really interesting one. It's a DLT Trading exclusive tri-way, no choil with green ano. These are not common at all. They don't make very many of those. This knife was sent to me for review by @husby_84 on Instagram. Give this man a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. Speaking of that, if you've been a member for a while, or not a member, if you've been watching for a while or you're brand new, either way, if you're enjoying this daily content and you'd like to support my channel, you can follow the link down in the description to my Patreon, and you can get your hands on some cool stickers, as well as gain access to my once a week Patreon upload that I do just for patrons. The support would mean the world to me, and I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about that. But yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Tip to scale, you're looking at not quite 7 1/4. It's like 7. It's over 7 inches, like 7.1. Blade length, you're coming in at about 3.2, maybe 3.1. Cutting edge is definitely 3 inches, like on the dot, 3 inches. Let's do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there it's definitely not a big knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And how about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. This is a fantastic size comparison, actually. They are very, very similar. A little bit more length going to the Spyderco Para 3, but there is more cutting edge on the Hinderer XM18, especially this version. Normally there wouldn't be, but this is a no choil. So if there was a choil, it'd be pretty close to the same. But there you go. It's about the same size as a Spyderco Para 3. Let's do one more size comparison because I know people want to know. Up against the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. This is the 3 inch. I hope I said that at the beginning of the video. In any case, it'll be in the title. But there you go. That's the size up against the 3.5 inch. I wish that there are 3 more Hinderers that I wish I had access to that I could show you guys. I'd love to show you up against the 24. I'd love to show you up against the new Eclipse 3-inch, and I'd also love to show it to you up against the Hinderer half track. I have reviewed all of those knives on this channel. You can go back to my Hinderer knives playlist and check those out if you want. It feels very similar in terms of length to the Hinderer Eclipse 3-inch, though the Hinderer Eclipse 3-inch is much more bulky. The half track is also more bulky, but it's shorter. If you guys are wondering which one is a little bit more comfortable, which one's a little more roomy for the hand, it's definitely this guy over the half track. It's very similar to the 3-inch Eclipse. If you're looking for a more bulky knife, probably the Eclipse. You know, maybe at some point I'll be able to do a comparison. I will let you guys know that at some point you will be getting a direct, not really a battle, but a direct comparison or an in-depth comparison video between the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch, which is my preferable, the one that's preferable to me, directly versus this one. Because a lot of people wanting to start with Hinderer knives don't know, you know, like, should I start with the 3.5 inch? Should I start with the 3 inch? I'm going to do a video and kind of help guide people the right way. Expect to see that in the very near future. How's the action on this guy? This is a Gen 6. I know every now and then there's still people, you know, who come to my channel and they're like, well, Hinderers are great, but they don't flip. It's not your fault for not knowing this, you know, if you don't, because if you weren't interested in Hinderer knives back then, you probably haven't given them a glance for a while. This new tri-way pivot system and the new detents have actually alleviated any stress about flipping action. Whether you want the standard nylon washers, which I don't, but each of these new tri-ways comes with nylon, bearings and phosphor bronze included in the box, and they've got the spacers that you would need to switch out the hardware, right? If you're running on bearings, you pull the spacers out. If you want to run on nylon or phosphor bronze, you put the steel spacers back in, and then there you go. You can have whatever washer system you want. On top of that, the detent has absolutely been fixing these guys to yield a perfect flipping action every single time, whether you're working with the 3-inch or you're working with the XM18 3.5-inch, whether you want to do the thumb flick, and yes, even the reverse flick, which I can just barely do right there. But yeah, the detents are excellent. There's no reason to fear them for that reason anymore. So rest assured, you're getting a good flipping action. This one is nearly fall shut. The only reason that it needs a little bit of encouragement is because the blade is so thin and short. There's just not enough mass there, but it is very smooth. Feels very similar to my Hinderer XM18, except for the fact that it's just a thinner blade. Let's talk about carry profile. So this guy has a flipper tab that sticks out just a little bit, but it's not a thick knife, not by a long shot. You can see there, it's actually a little teeny tiny bit thinner than the Spyderco Para 3. And in terms of actual, height and just profile in general, it's got both the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 beat by a long shot, both in terms of height and length and thickness, all that. These two are, not considered to be problematic by hardly anybody, and they're both awkward. They're both a little bit weird. So that's why we do the size comparison there. Let's go ahead and weigh it. This is a combination of G10 and titanium, as you can see there. And then we have a blade stock thickness of, I believe, 145 thousandths. It doesn't look that thick. But this is my first 3-inch, guys. Come on. 0. You think when you push 0, it just go to 0, but it really wants to fight me on that. There we go. Okay, let's check. That's like 140 to 145 thousand. So there you go. Not as thin a blade as I thought, but there's just not a lot to it. So the weight's coming in at a completely understandable 3.28 ounces. If you're a bug out or Para 3 lightweight person, that probably seems heavy, but considering we've got about 3 inches of blade length or cutting edge on this guy, the ratios are pretty good. On the standard 3-inch, the ones that do have the choils, you're getting less cutting edge, but you're still getting a full 3.2 inches of blade, which I guess matters if you're trying to penetrate a surface and you need that much blade. I don't know. The no choils are exclusive to DLT trading, so you will not find these anywhere else. You'll find the 3 inches in other forms in other places, but if you want a no choil, that is specific to DLT trading, and they periodically release the no choil in different forms. They've all been 3-inch and 3.5 inches as far as I know. I've never seen a no choil 24. That'd be pretty cool, but I've never seen it. So yeah, there's just there's not a lot going on there in terms of weight. Let's go ahead and do the hardware check. Get out my handy dandy WIA magnetic driver and WIA bit selector. Two very inexpensive items and very recommendable items. These are awesome. You can find them in my store that I referenced at the beginning of the video. Just open up the description, pull open the store, and look for knife maintenance, and then pull that category open, and there's these and a whole bunch of other really useful items in there. Unfortunately, today I'm going to have to admit that I believe the 3-inch XM18s utilize T6. Oh, it's like asking a robot to divide by 0, asking Metal Complex to admit that the Hinderer XM18 3-inch uses T6. It feels a little bit bigger than that. This is weird, but I'm going to try a T7. I don't know why. I should know this by now, but yeah, it's definitely a T6. Okay, so those are T6. They do sink in pretty deep. Listen to me trying to justify it just because I'm a Hinderer fan. Show you guys this up close. It sinks in a decent amount, but you still have to deal with the tiny teeth on the head, and you still have to deal with the fact that it is T6. Fortunately, spare hardware for these guys is in plentiful supply, though it is a little bit expensive. I still don't like T6, so darn it, Hinderer. That stinks, but oh well, it's never a deal breaker. That's just, it is what it is. It's a bigger head on the XM18 3.5 inch, unless it's the sheep's foot, which actually uses the same hardware as the Eclipse. Oh my God, what a mess. And then it's also not a Torx head on the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. It's a hex head, unless it's a skinny. I think, oh my gosh, it's nuts, the different types of hardware that are out there. But anyways, let's go ahead and proceed here. I think we got through everything we needed to go through. So this is much like the full size, except it's just shrunk down. So this is the slicer grind. Now keep in mind they come in a massive variety of different finishes, different blade shapes. I don't think there are varying thicknesses of the 3-inch. There are varying thicknesses of the 3.5-inch, but not the 3-inch. But they have DLC coated versions of these. They have black stonewash. They have black wash. They have working finish. They have tumbled. I've seen flat dark earth DLC, I think, in rare situations on this. Lots and lots of different stuff. Given that this is a 3-inch and it's a thinner stock blade and it's a slicer grind, this actually is probably the sliciest variant of Hinderer that exists. This and the skinny 3.5-inch, which is also 145 thousandths on the spine. And it's probably a little bit better because it's got a taller blade and so more room to drop towards the edge. But yeah, let me emphasize this. This gets really thin down here. Really, really, really thin. So this is going to be a performance blade. While there is a kind of a messy landing zone back here, it is nowhere near as uncomfortable to flip as my 3.5-inch. These lines back here, these jimping areas, are bigger and deeper and more aggressive. The detent is a little heavier. The blade is a little more massive, which means I come down with more force. So all of those things are culminating into a much more uncomfortable experience versus this 3-inch here. I actually could do this for a while. This is really not a problem at all. I have quite a bit of dead skin on my hands. You know, I don't know that it's going to be a whole lot different for most people, but I would venture to guess most people are going to have the same experience. It's just not uncomfortable. So I really don't have a problem with that. This uses external stops as thumb studs. You can use the thumb studs. It's even less comfortable and less easy to figure out than on the 3.5-inch. But that's not their primary function, as I've said before. Their primary function is as a stop. It's just got a secondary function as a thumb stud if you really, really feel like you have to use it. It's ever so slightly in the cutting path, considering this does not have a choil, but it's not that big of a deal. This version is M390. I think standard versions of the 3-inch that are not DLT exclusive are 20CV, but Hinderer is known for using M390, 20CV, 3V, S35VN, and 01 on their vintage series. Those are all the different variants of production versions of these knives that I'm aware of. They do a great job with their heat treat. It's never really been in question, so I'm not going to question it either. Everything looks perfect on this blade, no wonkiness. Hinderer even has their final edge down perfectly now. I remember in the past some Gen 4s that I had some wonky edge grinds. I have not experienced that at all in Gen 6, and I've handled many, well, I say Gen 6, that's really only applicable to the 3.5-inch. On the 3-inch, it's like Gen 3. On any of these new tri-ways, I've never had an issue with it. So I don't have an issue now. There you can see Hinderer's logo, looks nice, and Hinderer's reflective finish. It's actually very, very reflective. Not mirror, but it's very like pleasing. It's reflective in a very, very pleasing way. You can see my shirt there, and for whatever reason, me holding my hand awkwardly at my side while I talk. But yeah, it looks really, really nice. It's pretty cool. Normally, I don't see these little brown heat marks on M390 blades, but they're there. Sometimes you're going to get the little heat marks, which are those coppery zones right there, and sometimes you won't. For example, on my, I've got another DLT trading exclusive Hinderer here. This is the Fullard Spear, and it is also M390, and it does not have the heat marks. That does not mean there's anything wrong with your Hinderer. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. That's literally the definition or the explanation I got from the Hinderer collectors group on Facebook, which if you are a huge fan of Hinderers, if you're a huge fan of Hinderers, you should join that Hinderer collectors group because you get information on when stuff's going to drop, where it's going to drop, new stuff coming out. There's like 11 or 12,000 members. It's an awesome group. It also is a great way if you are trying to figure out, you know, should I get into Hinderer knives? The collectors group will help you nudge yourself over the edge. And for people who already own Hinderers and you're looking to like customize them and figure out what build looks nice, talk about endless pictures to help you decide what color of hardware you want, what color of scale you want, or even just the next thing you want to purchase, the next build you want to go after. I have built many a Hinderer influenced by that collectors group alone, so it's something that I recommend. If you are on a budget and trying to keep your wallet shut, I don't recommend it because you will spend money. Let's go ahead and move on here. Flipper tab is as obtrusive as you could expect on a Hinderer knife. It's not really that big of a deal. You can do the light switch, you can do the push button. It's a little less pointy than on a 3.5 inch, but it is still kind of shaped awkwardly. And it is more a finger guard than it, I mean, its primary function is to keep your finger from running up on the blade back here. I got to be honest, I think we need, every now and then Rick Hinderer does some 3.5 inch models that are non-flippers, and they're amazing. If any XM8, XM variant needs a non-flipper, it's this 3-inch version. This knife with a choil, without a flipper, would be my favorite small EDC ever. I can say that because I have this little Strider PT here, which I should have done a size comparison on. And I love the fact that it doesn't have a flipper tab and that I can choke up on it. I love it. You can see there, very similar in size. The PT is actually a little bit smaller, right? So if you can imagine all the hand room on the XM18, wouldn't need that big of a choil to make that work. I really need that in my life. I think Super Steel Steve actually purchased a vintage version of this 3-inch, which is the 01 Tool Steel, and then he ground away the flipper tab, and I'm envious. I think that was an awesome idea. Don't try that at home unless you really know what you're doing, but he did that to his, and I think it's awesome. Typical 3-inch textured scale here, that's G10. These come in a wide variety of different colors, and you can purchase different ones pretty easily. 3 handle screws all going into Chicago screws on the other side. It's the same Hinderer setup that's always been. Nice, beefy standoffs. No, the standoffs in the 3-inch are not modular with the 3.5-inch variants, even the skinny variants, and same thing with the screws. They are specific to the 3-inch models. Thankfully, they're in plentiful supply if you want to switch them out for different colors, or copper or brass, titanium, whatever you want. They're in plentiful supply. We have the same simple flathead screw, which I've always appreciated because you can turn it with a penny. It's not the most sightly thing in the world, but it's fine. We do have a nice lanyard hole that is out of the way. We have a completely and totally modular pocket clip, meaning the pocket clip on the 3-inch is exactly the same thing as the pocket clip on the 3.5-inch and the 24. I think the same pocket clip is utilized on every single Hinderer model, so you can switch them out. You want a custom clip, it's one of the easiest things to get. Same thing with the filler tab, it's the same size. You have the spanner head on the other side. Oh no, proprietary hardware. It's not proprietary. You can go down to your local hardware store and get a spanner bit for literally $1.50. I don't even think you need that. Most of the time, straight from the factory, I've found that I can adjust the pivot with a penny, and that side stays in place. If yours doesn't stay in place, $1.50 for a spanner bit. You do not need the Hinderer Armorer's tool. It's cool. I have one. It's definitely overpriced. You can just get a spanner bit. You have the Hinderer lock bar stabilizer disc, acting as stabilizer and over travel stop for the bar, and then you also have a lock bar insert that doubles as another over travel stop. You can see the engagement there is plenty good all the way on both the lock bar and the steel insert, and then this Hinderer is of course absolutely centered with no blade play, up, down, left, or right. Fantastic. So let's go over things that I don't like again, and we'll cover some things that I really don't like. Don't worry, I'm not going to be too harsh. It's got T6 hardware. I don't really like that. And the flipper tab is still a little bit awkward, but it works. The thumb studs are not not convenient to engage. You can do it, you'll figure it out. They're not convenient to engage. Other than that, though, I don't have a lot of complaints. This carries really well. It's an awesome EDC sized knife. Something I don't like about the 3-inch, and the reason that I think that I really need a version of this that has a choil and doesn't have a flipper tab, I cannot get my whole hand around this, and I don't like that, considering I do believe that this is still a more hard use capable small knife than some of the other small knives out there, whether they're in the same price range or not. Just the way that this is built suggests that it's able to handle a little bit more stress than your typical small folder. I do not want that flipper tab there on this little guy. I just want the choil and no flipper tab. Some people might like the flipper tab. They might not mind that it's just basically a 3-finger position knife, but for me, I want that out of the way. I want the option, just like the 3.5-inch, every now and then for there to be, you know, not a flipper tab. I think that would be great. Other than that, there's really not anything to complain about here. I mean, this is a great knife. It's expensive. These are $425, just like the bigger ones. A lot of people are, well, how the bigger one, the smaller one should be the exact percentage backed off of price, as the, in relationship, the price should correlate to the size. No, that's not how this works. Extra mass doesn't equal extra value because the value is not in the overall mass of the item that you're buying. What you're paying for is a combination of design, fit and finish, execution, and materials used. So it probably costs Hinderer almost exactly the same amount of money to produce a 3-inch as it does a 3.5-inch, right? And that's, wear on on his machines, cutting out the specific parts, the specific hardware, other than the, even the pivot is its own thing. It's actually a different, it looks like it's the same size, and it is the circumference, right? But it's actually, the length of it is different because you have a different thickness of titanium scales and a different thickness of G10 scale and blade, right? So it's a shorter pivot. So the only parts that are the same as the XM18 are the pocket clip, the lock bar stabilizer, and the filler tab. Everything else is different. So it's all special hardware that goes into that. So do I think the price is worth it? Yeah, but I think known by now as one of YouTube's biggest Hinderer fans. If you don't know that about me, that's true. I have a huge Hinderer playlist. I love Hinderer knives. Not everybody needs to spend $425 on a Hinderer. I'm not going to tell you guys that that's something you have to do. If you're already looking to spend that much money and get a really high quality knife and you're wanting a smaller knife, this is an excellent choice. There's a lot of excellent choices out there, but this is definitely an excellent choice. The best thing about Hinderers, it's like I always say, is that you can make it exactly what you want to make it. You're going to pay for it, but you can get exactly what you want. Yes, I can recommend this knife. It's going to go on my most recommended knives. It's also going to go on my favorite knives of all time playlist because it's a Hinderer, and I found that I really do enjoy the 3-inch. The only change that needs to be made for me to absolutely accept it as like one of the best knives out there is just, I don't want the flipper tab on there, right? But I feel like that's an inevitability, so it's going to go ahead and go on my favorite knives of all time. Thanks again at HusB_84 for lending this to me, as well as the others that you did. I really appreciate it. Guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it. Expect to see this knife, and I don't know, these are all pre-recorded, but eventually I'm going to do, if I haven't done it already, a Hinderer XM18 versus Strider SNG video. So expect to see the 3-inch and the PT make an appearance in that video. So it'll be a full, I mean, I want to do a video that's really all encompassing against, between Hinderer and Strider. So expect to see these 4. I think that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, or were at least entertained by it, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.